Welcome to today's episode of Financial Fluency. Today I have Lee Heyward with me, who is an image and sales strategist. Hi, Lee. Thank you for joining me.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
So I have to admit, before I got on this call, I was wearing workout clothes. And then when I looked at who was coming on the show, I was like, oh, I better go get changed. Because now and then I will wear workout clothes. Just, the athleisure is kind of acceptable these days. But I thought with an image strategist, I'm actually wearing a dress. You can't tell because I'm from here up. But so I dressed up for you.
Oh, fabulous, fabulous. It's so funny that you mentioned that because there just recently this article came out about how there's a massive decline in the number of suits bought. And there's a massive incline of the number of leggings bought. Like leggings are now surpassing the number of suits that are being purchased. And it just goes to show how our culture of what we wear to work and kind of the idea of how to dress for success really has changed.
Yeah, that is interesting. And I wonder if some of that has something to do with the shift since the Great Recession to more freelance and contract work. I mean, a lot more of us work from home than we used to, I think.
Yeah, I think
both
so.
used to work out of the home and now we both work in the home. So, yeah.
I think that's so common too. I mean, I have two kids, and when I dropped the youngest one off at preschool, there's this one dad who wears a suit and he's like the lone wolf. Everyone else is dropping off in shorts and t-shirt and flip-flop. And it's kind of interesting because it really differentiates him. And, we can talk about that more, but it kind of depends. You can start to think about what would the strategy be to kind of make me stand out?
That's true. Well, I think with a lot of the startup culture, I remember seeing an article about, who's the guy who runs Facebook? What's his name?
Mark Zuckerberg's hoodie. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a picture of his closet. And it was like all the same hoodie and all the same sweats or something. I was like, I guess that works for him. It looked so boring to me though.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, that's kind of become a thing. And I think, Steve Jobs kind of started that too with always wearing a black t-shirt.
Sure.
And I think he actually said a quote about it. I don't remember what it was, but it was something like, I make so many decisions in a day that I'm not going to waste an ounce of brain power on what I wear. And I totally get that. And I'm like right there with them. But I think that there is a little bit of kind of like pre-work you can do so that you do have zero thought when you get dressed. But that you could kind of make it more interesting.
How different do you think that is for men and women?
Well, which part you think? Like the amount of effort it takes to get dressed? Is that what you mean?
That and the acceptability of wearing the exact same thing every day.
That's a great question. And gosh, who was it? Was it Sheryl Sandberg? Somebody just wrote about this, about how she had been on some show with Mark Cuban, and he had worn like a t-shirt and that was totally acceptable, whereas she had to have her makeup done, her hair done, the whole deal. So I think men do get away with that a little easier, but I think if you start to pay attention to the people, particularly in sort of the entrepreneur world or the business world, those are really kind of like building something and kind of really making an impact on the culture. They're doing things in a really specific way. And so they're less likely to just be like, I'm just going to do a t-shirt and call it a day, unless there's kind of a reason for it.
Well, I know for a long time, especially as a child, in my mind, all suits were basically the same. Like I thought men just got up and had like interchangeable suits. And then I remember watching Project Runway and Tim Gunn, and I'm completely in love with Tim Gunn. And I was like, he does so much with the basic structure of a suit. Like every single time it was a different suit. They were beautifully cut, beautifully tailored, different colored shirts, different, depths of gray. And I mean, they were pretty classic, but it kind of opened my eyes to the possibilities that men can have in suits if they choose to.
Yeah, it's true. I think it's kind of a double-edged sword where men can easily sort of end up looking just kind of like everybody else, or they can kind of put some effort into it. I don't mean that in a negative way, but you can start to put some effort into it, folks. But they can start to kind of make it really purposeful like he does, and sort of add lots of accessories and kind of paying attention to the fabrics and stuff. And it does make a difference.
Well, since this show is focused on women.
Yes, we'll switch back.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's good to look at the differences, because I feel like often for our image, we end up having to spend a lot more. I mean, I feel like there are financial ramifications, both in terms of how much we spend, and then it can there can be barriers in terms of how much we make, especially in sort of corporate climbing worlds. Can you talk to us about that? You're more of an expert. Like, how does your image affect your ability to climb the corporate ladder or charge more in your job or progress in your career?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's something that everybody sort of heard all the time about, like, you have to dress for success or dress for the job you want. Like, that's kind of a concept that everybody's heard. But I think what happens is it doesn't get translated. It sort of gets translated as you go to the store, you purchase something that you think is going to be successful, and you call it a day. Whereas if you can kind of step back and sort of strategize to put like really who you are into it, what you're trying to do, like what's the end goal? Are you trying to climb 3 steps up? Are you trying to attract a client that's going to pay you $100,000? You know, what are you trying to do? And so you kind of look at it from a twofold way of like, what's going to make you feel really awesome from the inside out, and what's going to attract that person to you to make them think that you're totally awesome as well.
So how do you think this fits in with people's branding too?
So it really is. It's kind of interesting how my business has evolved. When I first started, I was basically a personal stylist. You could call me and be like, oh, I have nothing in my closet to wear. And I would say, great, we can totally work that out. And I still do that in a way, but now it has really become a portion of your brand. And it's sort of about how clients experience you, or how you're building a business, or how you're just how the people around you are experiencing you, from the way you present yourself, from the car you drive. I have a book coming out actually today, and I tell a very funny story about when a lawyer came to my house to do a refinance, and his car is parked in my driveway and it is covered in bird poop. And I'm kind of a get to the point kind of gal, and I am dying to know what happened to his car. Like, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you must have been attacked by Canadian geese on the way here. Like, was there a pterodactyl uprising? Like, what happened? And he was like, no, I just park under a tree every night and the birds poop on my car. And literally, birds pooping on his car has nothing to do with whether or not my closing is going to go well or not. But in my mind, I'm like, dude, you passed 3 car washes on the way to my house. You couldn't have washed your car. And so my mind now is,
you brought poop to me, literally poop
exactly
to my house.
to my house. And I'm starting to think, like, if you don't pay attention to that detail, what details are you missing as a lawyer? Yeah. So consequently, I don't have any idea what his name is. I call him the bird poop lawyer. I don't know what firm he works for, so I could never refer him to anybody. So imagine if it had been a different experience and I had been, you know, he had come with a washed car, you know, I probably would be like, hey, call this guy. So it can really affect your business in kind of interesting ways that you wouldn't think about.
That is true. You know, I heard a story too about, you've probably heard this one about the band that wanted no brown M&Ms in their dressing room. And I used to hear it told as like, oh, those prissy rock stars, like who cares whether they're the brown or not, they all taste the same. But the point that the band wanted to make was if they missed this detail, they might be missing parts of our pyrotechnics, or, you know, they had a massive stage show. It was someone like Van Halen, or, you know, some band.
It was a big band, somebody like that.
And I thought, what an interesting test to put in place to, you know, that would alert them that there could be other things going on wrong at this venue. And so it wasn't just a prissy thing. So I thought,
no, it's totally not. And if you really think about it, no matter what you're selling, whether you're a car salesman, whether you're selling like the most prestigious thing in the world, whether you're Oprah, people are buying you. You know, they're buying you, and they're buying this like trustworthiness and this confidence that you give, no matter what it is that you're selling, because they feel compelled to buy from you. And so the way you present yourself is totally setting you up to do that.
That's interesting. So one of my favorite parts about having a podcast is I often end up getting coaching on the call. So I have a personal question for you about branding and style.
Okay, awesome.
You ready? I've seen a number of people kind of within my sphere use a few really interesting things as part of their brands that don't necessarily fully relate to them personally, but which I have in my history. And I kept being like, I wonder if I should use those. One of them is this right here. I'm a pilot. I have a pilot's license. And I love Jenna Sword. And I was looking at all of her branding, and I ended up talking to her at a conference that we went to. And she has no experience with aviation at all, but she loves pinup style. So all of her stuff is like aviation focused. And then there are a few other people who use like rock and roll stuff. And in college, I had a band. I started a label. I married my husband, who's from England, and he has a band and a label. We still press vinyl records. We still play sometimes, but we have 2 special needs kids, so we don't do it that much. But again, I was like, I've never really worked any of that into my branding, even though like I have gone on world tours and I have played hundreds of shows, but I've just kind of been like, I don't know, one thing's over here, one thing's over there. How much do you think people should pull of their past into their branding?
I think your story is really powerful. And I mean, I can't say that I am like per se a exact branding expert. My expertise is really like bringing that all into like your entire brand, personal brand, the way you're presenting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But no matter what, your story, whether it's woven through copy or whether it's woven through like a tiny detail that you would present yourself, like your bangs alone are totally part of your brand.
Yeah, these are my signature bangs. You know what I call this? I was like, it's like a cross between a pixie and a mullet because it's long in the back, short. So it's either a mullixie or a mullixie or a pixielet. Maybe that doesn't sound that good though, does it? Maybe mullixie.
That's funny, but it is little things, and it's kind of an interesting question because what happens is people start to get to know you, and then if the things that they're seeing or how you're wearing clothes or the pictures that you're being photographed in, once they get to know you, if they don't totally make sense, there's just something off, and it affects kind of people's mindset in terms of how excited they are to work with you. So I think it's really important to figure out, you have to figure out how to weave it in. I mean, I don't think that you can come out and, you know, strap on a guitar every time. We'll get you some guitar hair bands, like all like it has to make sense, but there are probably details that you could kind of just little details in clothes or accessories that would give a nod to those things about your personality. And then it would be even more cool when people figure that out about you, because those are 2 really amazing things.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, this one was a bucket list one, and I actually haven't done much with it. Every now and then I'm like,
you got it.
Rent an airplane and like go fly around, you know, because it's a pretty expensive hobby, to be honest. But I had 6 months. My husband and I would come back we got married just after 9/11 and he couldn't immigrate. So we had to be out of the country for a year. And when we got back, we had this stretch of time before he could work and we were figuring out what to do. So I was like, I think I'm just going to go get my pilot's license. And I did, but you know, I'm not like a commercial pilot or anything, but.
Well, but that's still so cool. I mean, and I think to go back to the question that you asked and sort of, I think the entire point of what I do for people, whether it's like we're really figuring out how to create an entire new style for you, or we're making sure it's cohesive with your brand, the real point is just to differentiate yourself. And so that's totally what you're doing by kind of bringing in those cool little elements, like the fact that you're a rock star, the fact that you're a pilot. It differentiates you from everybody else.
Yeah, though I do feel like since being a mom, I don't pay that much attention to clothes. I try, but I work from home. Yeah. So for those of us who are moms who work from home, who like maybe dress from the waist up sometimes for podcasts or things like that. Yeah. What advice do you have for us? What should we be doing to work on our style?
Okay. So for starters, just so you feel valid taking advice from me on this subject, because I am a mom. I have 2 kids. One's 3.5, one's 6. So I totally get it.
Yeah.
And my cat has entered my office. He's not allowed, but here he is. So sorry for any meowing.
Mine's sleeping behind me.
Okay. Yours is being better behaved than mine. But, you know, it is a challenge. You got so much stuff going on in the morning. You're getting ready for stuff. You've got all these little people who depend on you. But at the end of the day, one of the things that I remember most, especially because my oldest, who's 6, is a girl, I want to be a role model for her. And the whole point of clothing and the whole point of getting dressed is like, yes, if you go outside naked, you might get arrested. So there's that. But really the whole point is to kind of help you feel good. So I think you have to be really honest with yourself to ask, like, what makes you feel good? And I don't believe the answer is yoga pants and a t-shirt. And people will argue with me about that a lot. So, I mean, my encouragement would be, if you know that things need to be super fast and that you're probably just going to be talking from like chest up, then think about that when you're buying clothes. So look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, am I going to be able to put this on and be done in a minute? If not, it's too much work and it's not worth it. So you start to look like your dress has a little pattern, so it's got a little detail to it. So you don't have to work so hard to like make it look interesting.
Hmm.
So that's, I think, one of the biggest takeaways. So try and find things that have detail kind of from the chest up, that are easy to throw on, kind of like that one and done concept. So otherwise you're like, oh, I need a shirt and I need this, and it takes you all this time to get dressed, and you're like, forget it, I'm just going to wear my yoga pants and a t-shirt.
Though some of those yoga bras are kind of fancy now with the crisscross straps in the back and stuff. The one I had on before, it was quite pretty.
Well, and that is just it. Like the whole athleisure fashion infiltration is huge, and there's a lot of really cute stuff out there. So you really do have to go back to the fact, like, if some of those cute tops make you feel awesome, you're like, hey, look, I've actually been going to the gym. I have not been eating Krispy Kreme donuts. then that might be the right strategic choice for you. But you have to think about it from the perspective of why you're doing it, and not just because it's what you have to put on.
Well, I do notice if I put on workout clothes first thing, I get a lot more steps in. So I track all my steps with my Fitbit. When I'm wearing those clothes, as opposed to, a dress or something that I don't want to sweat in, I don't move as fast. And I always try to get extra steps in. Like I park further out if I go to Target or something to try to jog in and get those extra steps. So I do feel like it changes my behavior a little in that I'm thinking fitness wise while I'm wearing it. But it's true. I do kind of hope I don't see anybody I know if I go out wearing my workout clothes.
Well, and that's trouble. I think the other thing that you have to ask yourself is, if business can come from the weirdest places. Like, I have had the weirdest run-ins, especially in airports. Like, you just meet the coolest random people, but it genuinely can come from anywhere. And if you have to justify the way you look, that's, it's not right. And that's what most of us are doing. Like, oh, I just threw this on because I was so busy this morning. And I'm not saying at all that it's easy to kind of, look amazing every day. But if you start making the decision to be like, you know what, every day when I get up, I'm going to inspire my kids, I'm going to inspire myself. If I run into somebody and they ask what I do, it's going to make total sense. Like, oh, that makes sense that you do that. I could totally see you being really good at that. Then it changes what you start putting in your closet.
That's true. That's very true. Actually, I remember when I was reading Big Magic. Did you read Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert?
No.
Oh, well, it's a great book. And there's a part where she talks about how she courts the muse and how she never sits down to write in her pajamas or wearing sweats or something. She actually she dresses up and puts on makeup because this is her job and she's going to her work and she needs to feel totally ready, and she does it so the muse will come. The muse comes when she is fully prepared, and so it's like she has a little ritual that she does before. So even though she's staying at home and sitting in front of a computer where nobody sees her at all, she still goes ahead and puts herself together the way she wants to present herself to the world. And I thought that's a really neat idea.
Yeah, it's cool. And it just shows you that everything is a mental game.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we avoid presenting ourselves a certain way because it seems like a lot of effort, and it seems like you shouldn't have to make yourself look a certain way. It's not really about that. It's really about how you feel. There's a great example kind of similar to what you're saying that made me think of it is Ronda Rousey, the fighter. I don't know exactly. What is it? I don't know. Anyway, fighter chick. She has a story where she talks about how, she's like the highest paid woman fighter in history. She has people that do absolutely everything for her, but there's one thing that she always does herself. She wears her hair in a very specific way. It's braided around her head, and she does it alone herself every time. And I thought, wow, she could totally pay somebody to do her hair while she's reading a book or doing whatever you need to do to get into the zone. But she talked about how that one act that puts her into the fighting mindset, and it helps her step into the ring. So we're all kind of stepping into a ring. It just depends on what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of I don't know. I've heard people talk about putting lipstick on as, as a shield, kind of I'm ready to take on anything. I can kind of see that with the braid of the hair. Yeah. And actually lots of athletes have little rituals that they do before they go and compete. I'm sure you've heard the Michael Phelps one where he plays the tape in his head.
Yeah.
Ahead of going, he goes through the entire race and back and forth, diving off and all of that, and then sees himself winning before he even steps up to dive in the first time. But I'm sure a lot of us working from home don't think to do those kind of things.
Well, and it's just interesting if you start paying attention to it. I have a lot of clients who, they come and we kind of figure out they come to me, we figure out what the strategy is that they need to be putting in place in terms of what they need to be wearing and how that's going to affect them when they're at home or how that's going to affect them when they're sitting in front of clients. But I get a lot of feedback about how what makes the real difference is actually just being on the phone with people during a sales call or like during a big meeting, whether you're like face to face like we are or just simply on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
that it can make a big difference.
Mm-hmm. That is true. So when someone calls you for a consult, what does it look like? Can you walk us through kind of your process, how you work with people?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, when I first started my business, I really was very focused on just let's make style easy. Let's make it really approachable for you. I think you should be able to get ready in 5 minutes or less. And I still believe all of that. But I started realizing that sort of when I first had my first real job, I was in sales. And I started realizing that there was a connection with how you present yourself and the sales results that you're getting. So my approach really takes into account what your goal is, whether that's that you're trying to get hired for a specific job. I just had a client recently who was interviewing for 6-figure jobs and she couldn't figure out what was happening. She wasn't really getting the results she wanted. And we literally changed her outfit, not her look, just her outfits. And the next interview is the job that she now has. So it really, the way I work is kind of reverse engineering what you want, whether that's additional clients, additional sales, a certain place on the corporate ladder. And then we figure out what's going to make you be the best version of yourself. And then we literally physically go shopping and figure out what that is. And it's kind of cool because I've got clients all over the country. I'm actually in Charleston, South Carolina, but most of my clients are all around the country. And we're able to kind of do this process together at first. And then for the rest of the time, people that stay with me ongoing, they call me up and say, oh my gosh, I have a big meeting or I'm on stage for this. What should I wear? And if we have it, we'll use it. And if not, I'll find something that's going to be perfect for you.
So
it just takes the stress out of it.
When you go shopping with clients who are far away, do you find them stuff online and send it to them? Or?
Yeah, sometimes. So a lot of times it will start off with people coming to me for their like overall makeover and strategy planning day. But other times, yeah, it literally involves, we have a goal, we know what we're looking for, I have all your sizes, and I'm finding all the stuff you need.
Well, that sounds interesting. And so I'm curious about your book as well. What will people learn by reading your book?
Yeah, so I have a new book that's releasing in bookstores today, which is super exciting. It's called Strategically Suited. Let's see, I have a picture of it. Or not a picture, the book. So I wrote this because I kind of just wanted to it's a really quick read. It takes like an hour to read. It's super short. And we did that on purpose so that it could just give you a new perspective on the power of what your image can do in terms of the power of first impressions, the power of how you present yourself and how you're going to actually increase sales or get the result that you want. And it takes you through a formula on how to create what I call an image edge. And I won't totally spoil it for everybody, but there's just 4 pieces that typically when you kind of examine, you start to realize, okay, I'm missing the consistency piece, or you know what, I'm missing the authenticity piece. Like I'm not doing what's really fully me. And when you combine all 4 things, you end up creating this sort of inner confidence powerhouse that I think is kind of almost unstoppable because it sort of just changed your whole perspective on yourself. So it just gives you a new way to look at things and a couple of action steps to kind of be able to know if the direction that you're going in is right or not.
So because I mainly talk to women and a lot of moms, as you're going through that, something popped up in my head, which is I feel like a lot of women have gotten to a point in their life, if they have children and spouses and businesses and all these things going on, sometimes they don't even know what they like anymore. Like you ask them. And I sometimes feel like I look in my closet and I'm like, maybe I should have some colors. Like I'm pretty black and white and gray and navy and, how do you help people through that? Because I think what we like, what our personal preferences, what's true to us in terms of clothing I feel like a lot of us don't actually know. I'm not sure I know.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And it's such a common thing. Like, you don't know. And honestly, like, life is an evolution. Like, you're constantly getting bigger and changing. So what you liked 5 years ago, you probably don't like now.
It probably doesn't fit anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So I think one of the easiest ways to kind of tap into that is to ask yourself this one question. So, like, put yourself in a scenario where it really matters. Like, something's on the line. Bless you. The big meeting, something where you know that you really want to be the absolute best version of yourself. I ask you, how do you want to feel in that moment? So you want to play the game? How would you want to feel?
Okay. Confident.
All right, confident. What else?
Knowledgeable.
Knowledgeable.
I can answer anything they ask me.
Okay, love it.
Accomplished.
Accomplished. All right, so confident, knowledgeable, and accomplished. And this is going to sound ridiculous, but what you do is you write those 3 words on a sticky note.
Okay.
Then you take another sticky note and you write those 3 words again.
Got sticky notes. Okay.
All right, so you 2 sticky notes. So you write confident, confident, knowledgeable. What was your other one?
Accomplished.
Accomplished. Okay. And then you stick that sticky note in your closet.
Okay.
And after you get dressed, you look at yourself and you read that sticky note and you ask yourself, does this make me feel accomplished, knowledgeable, confident? And if the answer is no, it's not right.
Okay.
So the second sticky note you put in your wallet, because when sales clerks or friends that you're shopping with or your mom that you're shopping with or whoever is like, oh my gosh, that looks amazing, I love it. And you're like, really? I'm just not sure if it's me or not. And you're kind of confused. You just look at that sticky note. It's kind of like your roadmap. And you just ask yourself, does this make me feel confident, knowledgeable? Why am I forgetting the other one?
Accomplished.
Knowledgeable is those 2 together. Intelligent and accomplished. And it really, like, it sounds hokey, but it totally works because your gut is going to be like, no, I don't feel like this. I would not wear this if I really was feeling that way.
Okay. Well, that's a good thing to try. I like that. We're definitely going to put that in the tips for the show notes.
Yeah, it's just an easy kind of fun thing. And then you have to pay attention to it because it will change some. But it's a better guide than being like, I don't think I like pink today. I'm going to get rid of all my pink stuff. You know, because it's kind of like there might be, like, let's take you, for example. You're a great example. Like, there might be the coolest, pinkest, most rock star, awesome thing that you'd be like, oh my God, I never knew I would wear pink, but you had never seen it in this specific way. I'm just making this up. I don't know if you like pink or not, but.
Yeah, I like pink. I actually have one pink skirt that I got in Portland years ago with this really cool, like, it's like a scene with some telephone wires and it's like hand screen, silk screen that somebody did, like a handmade shop somewhere. Yeah. I haven't worn it in a long time though, but it's still in my closet. It's one that I liked enough not to get rid of over the years. So. Okay.
Well, so there you go. So then you make an outfit with it and ask yourself how it makes you feel. And sometimes it's just simple things like one of my words that is not is cute. Like, a lot of people would like to be cute. I don't want to be cute. So if something makes me feel cute, it's not it.
Yeah. No, it's not like a baby pink. It's kind of like a more on the magenta side. But,
yeah, cool. Very fun. You have to play with it.
I should go pull it out of my closet. I don't know. I have a few things like leftovers from back when we used to tour that I keep because I still like, but I'm like, I haven't actually tried on since having kids. So I'm not sure it would still fit, but we'll see. That's the other thing with women. We have this major period of time in our lives, if we have children, when our bodies drastically change all of a sudden. And then it's like, what? My feet, I grew a half size in my feet when I had
that.
kids.
I feel is just unfair.
Yeah.
It's just,
all of my shoes did not fit.
That is just unfair. And, you know, it happens to some of us. I was very lucky that it did not happen to me. I have way too many shoes for that to have happened, but it is just unfair. That's all there is.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing that, I kind of thought of when I saw you were coming on the show and thinking about fashion and women is just in terms of, this is more for women in the workplace than women who work from home or for themselves, but just this idea that you get judged on your clothing and your appearance and, the potential for harassment, the potential for, sexism and all of that stuff coming along with clothing. Like, wanting to wear things that make you feel feminine and beautiful, but also not wanting to, well, I don't think we should ever feel like we invite bad attention by what we wear. We should be able to wear whatever we want. Men can wear whatever they want. They're never accused of like inviting the wrong kind of attention, right? But yeah, how do you feel about that aspect of fashion with women?
Well, it's definitely interesting because I think what's happened with sort of like the dress codes in the workplace is that they've gotten so vague that it's almost made it harder to figure out what to wear. And I do think it sometimes makes people really angry. And I think it's fair to feel that way, that you are judged based on what you wear. But I think you have to kind of back up and realize why our brains are sort of trained to do that. So, I mean, if you really think about it, we are trained to judge things, to base it on whether or not it is going to be safe. Whether it's the can of, tomatoes that you're buying to make spaghetti, if it's dented, you're like, I'm going to get the other can. There's probably nothing wrong with it. Mm-hmm. But you're like, in your mind, you're like, I think this is the safer bet. So you're going to go with that one. Mm-hmm. Same way you would like cross the street if you were passing somebody that maybe like made you feel uncomfortable. So it totally can feel unfair and it can make you feel angry, but it's just kind of one of those things that does exist. And I think it is kind of put in place for kind of the sense of security. But once you kind of realize that, then you just use it to your advantage to be like, you know what, I can present myself in a certain way that is going to make people feel or make people think, oh gosh, what is she doing? She really stands out. I want to really find out more about how I can work with her, how I can learn what she's doing. So I think that's kind of the cool part of it.
Okay. That's a great answer. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I think we're coming up to time, and I will make sure that we put links to your website. Oh, you also had it was an image calculator.
Oh, the calculator.
On your website.
Yeah.
You're talking about?
I was telling Jen earlier about, there's just this little tool that I created because people used to always ask me like, well, how do I know if it's worthwhile for me to invest, either buying new clothes or kind of, working with you, Lee, whatever the situation is. How do I know if it's going to be worthwhile to put an investment on creating this new image for myself? So I made this little calculator and it's on my site, and you basically go in and it asks you a few questions. And then it gives you a number of like, if you had an image edge that made you feel, like the most amazing version of yourself, this is how much more money you would make. And sometimes it's kind of interesting and it can really help you kind of make a decision as to whether or not, yeah, I should totally go out and spend some money creating the look that I really want to have.
Well, that sounds interesting. I'm going to go check it out myself.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun exercise.
And signed up to get a copy of your book. So I'll go back and check out the calculator too. And I'll make sure we put the link to that in the show notes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it's fun to play with.
Yeah, and thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. This was wonderful. It was lovely to be on.
Okay, great. I'll see you around the internet then.
Okay, bye-bye. Thanks.